Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, CesarRespino. Hey, welcome back. It is your friend CesarRespino with You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. And you can find me at Spreaker.com, or you can also find me at www.CesarRespino.com. And today, my guest, and I'm very, very fortunate to have this gentleman here. I want to give you a little bit of background before I have him introduce himself. His name is Kevin Hofmann. And let me give you his background, because this is going to be a absolutely wonderful interview and conversation. So Kevin Hofmann is an accomplished writer, public speaker, who has a passion for pushing forward the conversation of race. His book, Growing Up Black and White, shares his unique experiences of growing up as a biracial child adopted into a white family, living in the post-67 right Detroit. Appearing all over the United States, speaking his perspective and light-hearted yet contemplating view of sought after by many. Kevin has been interviewed by NPR and Nightline ABC and is quickly becoming a trusted voice in the area of race and diversity inclusion. Kevin, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Cesar?
I'm doing wonderful. So you are a speaker, you are an author, you are a trainer, and now you're, pretty much speaking to people and talking about your story and really empowering people through that voice of yours, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, I mean, I love, what I'm hearing here, or what I read. Why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners more about who is Kevin and give us more of that, where you came from and that story, yeah?
Yeah. So I was born 2 weeks after the riots in Detroit. I am the product of an affair between my white mother and black father. They worked together in the Chevy stamping plant in Livonia, Michigan, which is just outside Detroit. They were happily married, just to two different people.
Okay.
So my white mother's white husband forced her to give me up for adoption. So I was immediately placed for adoption. And it was actually my mother's job to take me from the hospital to my first and only foster home.
Wow.
So she had to drive, and when she found out that was going to be her job, she called a good friend of hers and said, "Will you come with me? I need you to take this trip with me to drop off my son to the foster home." And so I met this woman, the friend, and she said, "Your mother wasn't allowed to hold you in the front seat because it was just going to make her husband too angry." And so this friend held me in the back seat. And she said, "I was trying to tilt you in a way so that your mother could see me in her side mirror, so that she could see you in her side mirror." And then the whole time that was happening, her husband, she's crying, my mother's crying, and her husband can't figure out why she's crying.
Yeah.
And so they arrived at the foster home, dropped me off. My mother came back 2 weeks later to drop off some diapers and onesies.
Yep.
And that was the last time we saw each other.
Wow. So since then, you guys haven't seen each other since then?
No. So she drops me off. I'm adopted by a white family, a white minister, his wife, and they had 3 biological children.
Okay.
And we lived in a suburb of Detroit initially.
Got it. So let me ask you this. When you were taken to the adoption, how long were you there before you were actually adopted by this white family?
I was fortunate. I was only in foster care for 3 months.
Okay, awesome.
I was 3 months old. Yeah.
Yeah.
was adopted.
Yeah. So tell me, how was that growing up, right? I mean, you've been biracial. How was that experience for you? Because I can already imagine, like I'm from Mexico City, and I too have a book, and when I came and I talk about it in my book, me coming to the States was very difficult at first because again, I couldn't fit in. And so I want to hear your point of view on that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I'm this, biracial kid growing up in Detroit, and Detroit's racial history isn't good. And, I'm born 2 weeks after the city is actually still smoking. When
Yeah. Yeah.
And it has to do all with race. And so
Right.
I'm this biracial kid in this city that's just at each other's throats that has to do with race. So yeah, that first neighborhood we lived in, we lived there for 3 years, the first 3 years of my life. And when I was a year old, I woke up to a burning cross in our front yard.
Wow.
And that was the community. And
Yeah.
it may have been someone from that church that my father was a pastor at as well.
Yeah.
And so after living there for 3 years, my parents decided this city's just going to kill us. I mean,
Right.
And this was, you got to understand too, when they burned that cross in our yard, it was just a few months after Martin Luther King was killed. It was a few months after Bobby Kennedy was killed. So the real threat of violence and actually someone actually dying in our family was very real.
Right. It was like the norm. I mean,
exactly.
Unfortunately, right? I mean, that was, wow.
And so my parents decided that we were going to move, and we moved into Detroit.
Okay.
And the church that my dad became the pastor of, the house that the church owned where we lived was in a Black neighborhood.
Okay.
So every day I would go out and see kids that looked like me. And that was amazing. I mean, that changed my life.
Right.
Because, especially back then, there weren't a lot of good Black role models.
Right.
No role models of color. I mean, to have friends that I could see that weren't exactly like these stereotypes that I was seeing on TV or in the movies. And man, that really helped me to love myself because I was around kids that looked like me.
Right. And then do you know maybe how did that make your parents feel? Obviously, moving into that neighborhood, obviously you felt like you were fitting in. What about them? How did that play out?
I think they fit in well. Who really struggled was, I have 2 brothers and a sister. So my two brothers really struggled in that environment.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's human nature, man. Whoever's the majority, they get picked on.
Right.
They were the minority, they got picked on.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So my mom would say, even now, to this day, she'll say, we just couldn't find anywhere where everyone was comfortable.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point. I want to touch on that for a second. I think a lot of times it doesn't matter what the circumstance may be. We're always so busy trying to find or look for the perfect moment, the perfect place, the perfect husband, the perfect relationship, whatever the case may be, right? And it's never gonna be there, right? As much as and the more you look for it, the more disappointed you're gonna be. And so you have to, at one point, say, okay, what am I able to tolerate? And I'm not talking about, nothing negative in terms of tolerating, but what am I able to live with that is going to be comfortable enough for me to be able to do what I want to do in my life, right? So if you're, in this case, like you say, you guys were in one place where you were, running after your lives. Now you went to another place, and now it seems like, man, that still wasn't fitting in 100%. Yet it was a better situation than where you were in the past, right?
Yes.
And so we got to be able to realize that, and we got to be able to understand that sometimes, if we continue to seek for that perfection, it's never going to come. We got to be able to be content with what is going to be the current situation and how much is that going to help me in my life, right? In anything that we do, right? And so it seems like that's what you guys did, right? And so which is good.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So that neighborhood I lived from age 3 to 8. My dad gets a promotion to be the assistant bishop of Southeast Michigan.
Awesome.
So we're like the Jeffersons. We're moving on up. We moved 2 miles away, still in Detroit, but now it's an all-white neighborhood.
Got it.
And so I had my struggles in that neighborhood, but you're right. I wouldn't change that
Right.
because that neighborhood, I don't think, kids grow up so different today. I mean, in that neighborhood, although I was, one of the only black kids in the neighborhood, I could run from the time I got up to when the street lights came on. We were running through that neighborhood, and it was just a beautiful place to grow up. And so I would never change anything about that, because, man, I enjoyed
Yeah.
And then I had the advantage of just going, I would always see black kids, because the schools I went to were like 95% black.
Got it. So you have a little bit of the mixture,
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, did you ever came to a realization that, kind of going back to that is like, man, I just got to surrender. I got to surrender to the process. I got to surrender to the idea. Was that something that might have been going through your mind? Like, this is going to be my reality. And as long as this reality is not hurting me, let me just surrender and accept what's coming. Was that in your mind at any point?
It was in different phases. Like, it depended where I was and how comfortable I was. So in that white neighborhood, yes, I finally said, yeah, I'm comfortable here. I mean, it's interesting. As a person of color, there were certain areas where I was comfortable. So my best friend, who lived right across the street from me in that white neighborhood, I'm real short. He's this tall, skinny white kid. We hung out together all the time. So I'd go with his family places. So that was a safe place for me. And yeah, I would love, hanging out with them. But I also knew there were neighbors in that area that didn't want me around or gave off that vibe. And so I was uncomfortable in those situations too. So it was this, I remember at 7 or 8, just thinking, okay, this is a safe place for me. This convenience store at the corner where the woman accused me of stealing, that's not a safe place for me, so I'm not going there. But I can go to my best friend Mike's house. I can hang out with his family. And so, early on, I learned where to go and what to avoid. Right. And that filled me. I was like, okay, I'm good.
Right. That's awesome. And, one thing that I was reading in the information you sent me is that, and I like this a lot, and I want you to elaborate more on that. You said, we are greater than, not less than. What does that mean?
Yes. So, and this is a great story, and I teach this to foster kids and adoptive kids, which is so much of what we've gone through early in life. It's the reason why we don't live with our birth families for whatever reason. And so a lot of foster kids or kids in care or kids that have been adopted, their lives start out really tough.
Right.
And that early on, we learn to kind of say, I'm less than, I wasn't able to live with my birth mother, and it's because there's something broken in me. And I've just come to realize that, no, we went through all that stuff. And man, we've gone through stuff that most people don't go through in a lifetime. And so, one of my goals now is to encourage people that have gone through trauma early in life to understand you are built in a way that most people aren't.
Right.
And you, for the simple fact that you're here still standing, you got a lot in you. Yeah. And there's a lot of greatness that you're about to do if you get that, if you get just how powerful you are.
Right. And
greater and not less than.
Right. No, and I love that. That's amazing message. And I never saw it that way. And one thing that I tell people too a lot is that, every day is a blessing, right? So if you wake up today, it's a blessing for a new opportunity. Now, again, kind of going back to that though, you have to work on that opportunity. You have to work on what I believe to be your mind. You have to work on yourself, self-love, self-care, all those things, right? Except if you're waking up every day, you have that opportunity to make it right today. If for whatever reason yesterday something didn't work the way you wanted it to work, don't beat yourself over that, because there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
Focus on today, right? And so every morning is a blessing, and I really foster that, and which is pretty awesome. So for you though, again, going back to you growing up in this circumstance, it seems like you came from a very spiritual background, right? With your family, right? Obviously. Right. So, would you think that had anything to do with your journey as to in terms of where you at now, right? And how now you're really trying to get your message across multiple people, whether they're foster kids or not. Like, does that spirituality have anything to do with that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Again, this is another message I'm working on, which is, I never met my biological mother, but I met her sister.
Okay.
And she remembers so I was born August 1967. Early 1967, she remembers a very frantic knock on her door. It was my mother.
Okay.
My mother came in and she said to her sister, "I'm in trouble and I need your help. I need to borrow money from you and your husband, Ray." And my mother knew that in exchange for this loan, she was going to have to give her sister some collateral. And that collateral was going to come in the form of information. But she didn't want to get into this story with her sister. And so her sister asked, "Well, what do you need the money for?" And my mother, Helen, said, "I'm pregnant. And when we had our last child, my husband, Louis, told me he didn't want to have any more kids." And Nancy's response was, "Well, I know Louis isn't the brightest bulb in the closet, but I'm pretty sure he knows how kids are made.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do it by yourself. He had some hand in this. It looks like you guys are going to have, another baby." And then my mother had to tell her, "Well, remember Louis had an operation after we had our last child. He's not able to have kids. I had an affair with someone." And then her sister said, "Well, again, Louis not the brightest bulb in the closet. Just tell him it's his. How will he know? Just tell him the vasectomy didn't work." And then my mother finally had to say, "I had an affair with Pee-wee, the cook at work, and Pee-wee's black. So the moment this child comes out, even Louis will know it's not his."
Yeah.
So I need money to have an abortion. And I'm going to take this money and go up an hour up the road to Flint and have an abortion if you and your husband will give me the money. And Nancy disappeared into a back room in the mobile home and returned and cupped Helen's hands and put the money in her hand. And Helen quietly left with every intention of leaving that mobile home and taking the drive up to Flint. And I don't know when, but either in that first minute or that 59th minute up to Flint, she changed her mind and gave life to me.
That's awesome.
And so I don't take that lightly. Like,
right.
There's a reason. Like, why did that happen? And the reason is, and I've just come to this recently, is because there's a bigger message than you. And your mother did all she could, and that's why, she raised you up as much as she could, and then she gave you off to the family that adopted you.
Right.
And yeah, she gave of herself. And really, back then in the late 60s, a woman who had an affair, who was pregnant, quite honestly, if Louis, her husband, had beaten her, there wouldn't have been many people that would have objected to that. I mean,
right.
Those protections weren't there for women.
Right. Yeah. And it was one of those things.
Her life telling him that.
Right. Exactly. It's one of those things where it's kind of is the acceptance. Like
exactly.
that's the norm. And not only that is like the worst case scenario is it was an affair with another race. And so that even probably.
Yes, exactly. Right. So even then people would go, "Okay, yeah, I understand why you did that."
Right.
And so, yes, I think there's no mistake that I dodged that bullet, because there are so many people that I can touch through this story.
Yeah, yeah. No, you know what? It's amazing, hearing you say this, because I already see there's a lot of similarities between you and I in terms of the message or what we're trying to do, and I call it my highest intention. So I want to hear from you, but my highest intention is very similar to that. Is how can I empower? How can I inspire? How can I get to more people, more lives? Whether it's through my book, through this podcast, through any message, whether it's public speaking. How can I help those people that are going through a difficult time? And at the end of the day, said, there are options. You have the ability to get out from where you think you are, because there is an option. So anyways, I have a highest intention. What is your highest intention? What are you trying to accomplish now that you have this realization that, there's more for you than just, being here?
And that's exactly it. So yeah, if your push is, man, I want to sell books, I want to make money, that doesn't do it for me. What does it for me is when I get those, if I'm dealing with, adoptive families, and those kids come to me and say, "Man, you know what I'm going through. You can sympathize with me." Or, if I can touch someone who, started out life in a rough way, but then understands. But all that I went through made me so much stronger. And I'm more capable of whatever it is really that God has for
me. Yeah.
And so, yeah, my greatest intention, and I like that phraseology.
Yeah.
My greatest intention is just to touch people.
Yeah.
I think we all have a story for that exact reason.
Right.
Is, you didn't go through this stuff for nothing. It's so you can prevent this person from going through it.
Right. Yeah. And embodying them and helping them and empowering them to do just that. Right. So tell me more about your book. When did that come out? How did that come out? What was, I think I kind of know the answers to the reason why, but give me more about your book.
So the book came out 10 years ago.
Okay.
And initially I wrote the book because it was just an unusual experience. So I thought, hey, people will be interested in this.
Yeah.
But I was also writing because I went in writing the book knowing, okay, I got to talk about race for life. So how can I do that in a way where people will keep reading and enjoy it, but then get something out of it? And so the book is just full of, quite honestly, it's full of stories between me and that tall, skinny white kid and the craziness that we went through, the friendship that we had and still have. We've known each other for 40 years, talk to him every day. And it's just, I think it's a casual way to talk about race where people can go, oh, okay, his experience might not be mine, but it's still valid. And I think that's so important when we have this conversation about race, which is, although this guy may have experienced life different from me, that doesn't mean he's crazy, and it doesn't mean he's seeing things. That's just his experience.
Right.
So yeah, so I wrote the book 10 years ago. 2 years ago, decided I got to make it better. And in those first 8 years, I went around speaking, and everywhere I went, people were like, tell me exactly what to do in this situation. When I'm pulled over by the police, what should I do as a person of color? And so I added a chapter in the back which addresses things like that, which I'm really proud of. And then again, every day I see just how different ways this book can touch people and spark conversations that we don't have every day, which is really pushes me.
Yeah, definitely. And do you see, do you feel that there's still a lot of that, I guess, profiling, in different areas? Is that still very common nowadays? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is. I see it. And I tell people this all the time. I have been raised to see that racism, although it may be slight. I can see it in instances where most people probably won't see it. And they're just not trained to see it. So it's just those little slices that you get when you go to the grocery store and the white cashier is having an amazing conversation with the customer before you, the white customer, and then you get up there and they barely can say hi to you. And you're like, wow. Yeah. And it's that daily struggle.
Right.
So yeah, if we can just get more people to see that and just empathize with that.
Right, exactly. And it may more. I think it also comes down to just sharing a lot of the different stories, and not only that, it's just also being able to educate people. I think sometimes we tend to forget that, people may only know what they believe to be true because that's all they see. But once they see outside of those walls, right, there's more beyond that. Because just like you or me or anybody else, it doesn't matter your color or background, we're all the same. And one thing that I tell people a lot, and I always want people to understand this, is that we are all in this one ride called life together, right? Yeah. We're riding on this one vehicle, which is our life. So why not just enjoy that as one, right? So it's amazing, it's crazy that we're still seeing that, and it would be nice if that was not the case, but nevertheless, it is what it is. And the best thing we can do is we as people have to make it better for us and the people that are around us, and then just help them as much as we can, right?
Right.
So talking about this, I can see that you're very, very positive, very excited. Are there anything that you do on a day-to-day basis to set you in the right mindset? Do you have any kind of rituals, any kind of habits, any kind of, things that you do daily?
Yes. So every day I do something to push this message forward.
Okay.
Whether it be a podcast or working on a keynote address that I'm going to give. Yeah, it's doing something. Just show up every day and do something. And that really helps me to get at it every day.
Yeah. And when you talk about show up every day, what do you mean by that? Because I heard that in different contents, and I want our viewers to maybe, I know what that means. I just want the viewers and the listeners to understand what that means if they're going through any kind of struggle. So what does that mean, show up every day on whatever it is that you're doing?
So, yeah, every day I'll get up and say, okay, what am I going to do today to get me in the position where I want to be, which is to push this message out to more people. So that means, these last couple of weeks, it's been, let's see what podcasts are out there so you can get on there and you can just start to expand your platform and reach as many people as you can. Right. So it's every day doing something proactive to get your message out there. And that just really, and as a speaker, that's great for me because it's, forced me to start writing again. And then,
right.
Yeah. So
does that matter? Would that matter whether it's a holiday? Does that matter whether it's raining, snowing, it's freaking hot outside? Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing, right? That a lot of times, we tend to forget that doing something great is gonna take not just one step; it's gonna take multiple steps. And so we're looking for that sign or that view that this is working out. And sometimes you don't see it. God or whatever you believe in, has a different agenda than you. And sometimes it might take time before you can actually get to that. So you got to continue to show up every day, no matter what, keep doing it and doing it. And eventually I know for a fact it's going to show up and you're going to, wow, you're going to look back. I'm like, wow, all of this that I've done has given me this. And you have that self-accomplishment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I can tell you, there's been in the past when I've gone through, situations like this where I'm like, okay, let's really hit this. It's never not been worth it. I've always seen, so you do one thing today, which adds to what you did yesterday, which you'll add to tomorrow. And when you start stacking that up, almost immediately you'll see a change. You'll see a difference in what you're doing.
Right.
And it does add up.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. So do you speak, and how often do you speak, and where do you go to speak if people wanted to find you, or how does that work?
So to find me, you can go to my website, which is kevinhofmann.com, KevinHofmann.com. And so, yeah, I speak at, I've worked with K through 12 schools, districts, universities. And now I'm really hoping to push into working with organizations and businesses and do, diversity and inclusion work.
Right. And then you're a trainer. Is that a physical trainer?
Yeah, and I'm a trainer for the state of Ohio. So I train adoptive families, foster parents.
Okay, so most of your work is really with foster parents or adopted kids or things like that. That's your main focus, right?
It was.
Okay.
For the first probably 8-9 years. And now I've just understood, because that's such a small community.
Yeah.
And so now, I'm really starting to push it beyond that. And so my hope is that will be a smaller portion.
Right.
Really the larger portion where I can impact even more people is going to be in businesses and working with schools.
Got it. That's awesome. So I have a couple more questions for you. What's the next steps for you? What is on the next couple of months? What are you planning to accomplish or do?
Well, I'm excited. So I have a coach that I hired, and we're going to be partnering and man, if you're trying to create a business, what you got to do is sometimes you got to reinvent yourself so many times.
Yeah. Right.
And so a coach came to me and he said, you're a writer and a speaker. Why don't we use what we know and go train other writers and speakers? So we're going to be doing that. We just did it in Chicago. We're hoping to do it in the Detroit area soon. And then my big vision, which I'm really excited about, which we just came up with last week, is we want to do a small cruise, probably a 5-day cruise where we take authors and speakers and we put them through exercises throughout the cruise. So yeah,
Nice.
we encourage them to write during the cruise, and then we'll give them exercises, and just to again push this message out there to as many people as possible. Because like you, I think everyone has a story. So how do we get?
Yeah.
I could be selfish and say I just want my story out there, but I think there's room for all of us. So how do we impact the world in a major way? Well, you get other soldiers to go out and put their messages out there too.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. And let me know about that cruise. I definitely love cruising, and I love the what you're going to be doing there. So for sure. That's awesome. Yeah. And so, and do you have any new books coming up anytime soon, or right now it's just focusing on those two things?
Focusing on those two things and speaking. There's another book out there that will most likely it will deal with race. And I'm just mulling that over in my head, what that's going to look like.
Right.
It'll be out there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So if you had one advice to give the listeners and, the viewers, just one advice on anything they can do to overcome anything in their life, what would that be?
Consistency.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, man, if you can put back-to-back days, you will see something. And it doesn't take a whole lot to see results. So again, it just means getting up, showing up every day and doing something. It can be something little, but doing something to push your message forward, or, do what you one step closer to whatever goals you have.
Right. So, okay, awesome. If people wanted to find your book, where can they get your book?
They can go to my website, kevinhoffman.com. It's available on iTunes. We just finished the Audible version, so it's available on iTunes, Audible, Amazon. The Kindle version's out there. The paperback is out there. Okay.
Awesome. And then besides that, if people wanted to get a hold of you, and maybe they want to, know more about what you're doing, how, maybe how they can catch you in the next speaker event, how can they connect with you? Is it through your website too?
Through my website. Yep. You'll find all kind of links to my social media there. You can follow me that way too.
Yeah. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put all the links in this podcast and all that stuff, so people that when they listen to this podcast or see it, they can actually connect with you and definitely reach out to you. So Kevin, anything else that maybe you want to leave with the listeners right before I let you go that you want to share with us?
Yeah, it's just the last thing is we all have a story, and so it's up to you what you do with that story.
Right.
Yeah, you can let it break you, or you can use it to help build up people. Yeah,
that's awesome. Kevin, it's been amazing. I had a wonderful, wonderful time with you today. And, I really enjoyed your story. And I definitely got to pick up that book too. So, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and really empowering people through your message. Thank you so much for that.
Appreciate you. Thanks, Cesar.
Yeah, no problem. And for the rest of you guys, I want to say thank you so much. Please make sure that you listen to this podcast at Spreaker.com. Make sure you follow me, subscribe, and be ready to listen to some of the other speakers that we're going to be having in the next couple of weeks. Till next time, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Hi, I'm CesarRespino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under CesarRespino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.